happy to have this panel of experts with me. Frederik, Claudio, Jan, and Reto are all experts in their field, and what's special about this actually is that we have industry, we have academia, we have tech, and we have legal. So we have a really wide gambit. And I've got a couple of questions that I will start with, but I'm really eager to also hear from all of you. So if you have questions that are for any of these experts, feel free to raise your hand, and I'm happy to include you into the conversation as well. But just to kick us off, why don't we go down the line, and each of you can tell us really quickly, what are you doing in AI X blockchain? And
thanks. As you introduced, I'm a lawyer, actually, financial market regulatory expert, and started in 2016 also advising heavily in blockchain and crypto, and since then had the pleasure to be part of several projects from ICOs to regulated financial institutions, unregulated ones, protocols, whatever.
Good morning, everybody. I'm Jan Camenisch from the Dfinity Foundation. We're like a major contributor to the Internet Computer Protocol, running the intercomputer, helping with that. And actually, AI and blockchain is really like a very interesting combination, and I actually think they augment and help each other very well. I guess we can talk maybe about that later as an introduction. So let's keep it at that. But I'm actually very excited about this combination of the two things, and they really address each other's problems almost perfectly.
My name is Claudio Tessone. I'm professor of blockchain at the University of Zurich. Sorry. And we have been doing different things. On the one side, obviously, we are doing education in the intersection of the two areas, but also in the area of research, we have been doing development of token-based economies that have a lot of practical applications as well in AI, for example, with respect to retribution of data ownership or actually running the models.
Hey everybody, my name is Fred, and I represent the Cardano Foundation. Cardano is the world's largest decentralized distributed compute network. It's about 7 million citizens on it, and I'm really thrilled here today because during the whole day there's going to be really cool projects on Cardano in AI, who's going to present as well. And I know NMaker is making an announcement around 6 o'clock today. So I really give if you're there, don't miss that. It's going to be really cool. I love the use case. And as my panelists here, I'm looking forward to discussing the intersect of AI and blockchain.
perfect. Thank you guys so much for those quick introductions. And already some interesting topics that you raised. Maybe with what you said, Jan. You said that the problems of blockchain and AI solves the problems of blockchain and vice versa. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Very happy to. I mean, I guess you all have heard about AI, right? I mean, is it trustworthy? AI collects a lot of data, so you need to protect all that data. Where does the data go, right? And if you interact with ChatGPT, Claudio, and that data obviously goes to these respective companies, so you want to protect that data. On top of that, if you talk about security of AI, right? AI is just a bunch of matrix entries at the end of the day, and there's hardly any way you can analyze with a normal piece of software, normal piece of code. You can ask somebody to analyze that, you can analyze it yourself, depending, and you know what it does, right? With AI, you can't do that. So that really means like AI, you need to run it at the end of the day on a trusted platform, and blockchain is exactly that, right? And actually in the computer, we already have AI running. We have AI running for face recognition. We have AI running to figure out when people do airdrops that they can only participate once because they can recognize those faces. In the future, we will see much more AI running on blockchain. This is really where the Dfinity Foundation are working towards. Right now, a smart contract on the internet computer can host 500 gigabytes of data, and will be more and more. So, as I said, we have models already running, but it needs to be much more than, right? Because these are much larger. But that's how blockchain can help AI really solve the trust and privacy issue for AI. On the other hand, the blockchain or all of these protocols are new, right? It's a new IT system. yes, I mean, Bitcoin has never been hacked, so you want to actually run your software as smart contracts on blockchain platforms, but it's not so easy, right? You need to port stuff, etc., etc. And here, AI can really help blockchain, because if AI is good at one thing, it's actually also writing code, transpiling code. I mean, Java was invented because you can sort of run it on many platforms. Still not good enough, right? There's APIs that you need to access, and AI can really help in that. And we're seeing that already, like on the computer protocol, how AI can help that. And so we're actually just gonna launch like a cool product in that. If you follow Twitter, you might have seen some of that. But you know, like very, very soon, and you know, also if you read the progress on AI, how fast these things grow. I just tell your AI, you know, I want to, you know, like a blog website, I want to, whatever, tax tracking website, like anything, like any application, you just tell AI to do it, it will do it, launch it automatically on blockchain protocols, and so it's really, I think, a very nice combination of the two things.
Amazing. Frederik, you have to also, what do you think about the intersection? Where do you think AI can help blockchain?
Well, I think there's so many places, but where I like to start is always about AI agents. So what most people have been sort of exposed to today is large language models, and they got this sort of epiphany moment of the user experience and got really excited about it. But actually, from a regulatory perspective, we have a lot of problems, right? Because we actually don't know how these neural networks take decisions, and there's a lot of use cases where we are struggling to protect the consumers and the users under current regulation. But what we're going to see in the future is we're going to see that AI is going to basically enhance blockchain in a way we've never seen before. And the way this is going to work is that we're going to start being able to harvest our own personal data. So anybody in the audience, if you take up your phone right now and you look at it, and you go into the passkey on your Google device, on your Apple device, you will see like 300-400 saved passwords. This is data footprints, where you basically have a part of the identity, but all your data lies with a vendor. This is a vendor model, right? So what we're going to have in the future is we're going to have AI agents who have access to that personal data. So when I went to the doctor like 2 years ago, got prescription medicine, I never got the data for, you know, from what the doctor actually said. I just got like one piece of slip to go to the pharmacy. But all that data will make a digital twin of you. And if you put an AI agent, which is protected from a security perspective, it will now start being able to take better decisions than you can, because you can't remember all of that what happened in the past. But what that requires from a regulatory perspective is we need to move the digital identity model upside down. So we need to start working with something called CK Rollups or other privacy measures, which allows us to share identification, but you have the data, and you can verify that data among different banks and among different vendors, so they can still optimize their model without actually having all of that data. And that's actually fully in line with EU GDPR and other data privacy rules. So we're going to see a regulatory pressure and a consumer pressure from people who are exploring these AI agents, but they have to live in a place which is truly trusted, as Jan is saying, and that's where the blockchain comes in. So if you think about what blockchain really is doing, is this trust handle, right? But it's never had a good user experience. And this is what's going to come now from a regulatory perspective and from these AI agents in a way you've never seen before. And I'm really happy to say, I mean, I saw Masumi is in here and some others, right? There's some really cool people in here who is not just talking about this, but is really far away and cracking at that problem. The other part is governance, and I think really Claudio should speak more about it, right? But how do you actually control general intelligence? How do you actually verify the neural networks and the decision patterns? And you know, blockchain is made for that. It's made for standardizing data, which means it's very good in terms of training models on it, but it's also made to do, to do boundary conditions on compute models, right? It does have some really big restrictions, but that's actually what we want, right? And I think we should explore that governance angle and how we've been exploring blockchain governance and how that merges into AI to make us more conform with a lot of these AI use cases. So just two things.
Perfect. I mean, that's a great segue to Claudio to talk a little bit about the governance side of things, and then also what are you worried about? What are things that you're anxious about, and where are areas that we have solutions, and where do we not yet maybe have a perfect solution?
Yeah, thank you very much. I think that, as Fred was saying, in general, governance is one aspect of something that is even broader, that is very interesting as well for businesses, that is doing a business intelligence, is helping support decision systems. Okay, and I think that with all the data that we have in blockchains is something that is a fascinating opportunity, because so far, actually, one thing that is very interesting for me to blockchains is that it brings transparency and brings back once again data scarcity. So far, after we have digitized our economy, replicating data has been marginally, very, very cheap actually. It was only increasing marginally the cost of doing this. And with a blockchain, you can once again revert to a place in which you have data scarcity. And this allows for a tremendous potential as well, for example, also to leverage on our own data to be also recipients of rewards whenever others are using them, for example, for different kinds of models, if the models are properly attributed in an environment that is secured. And the other thing, as I was saying, we were talking about governance. The interesting thing about governance is that we have limited capacity, cognitive capacity as humans, and therefore making decisions, making informed decisions in an environment that is so information rich becomes harder and harder and harder. And this is something that we can actually prevent thanks to these agents that we can build. It is even more interesting if the agents are not running in centralized environments, but also themselves are distributed in a way. And blockchain and distributed technology is something that also allows us to do. And therefore, the potential is not only at the level of new business models that are going to be developed by AI, but also the important thing is that it will support us in a much broader sense, and also in something that is so difficult, which is we have a lot of difficulties governing our own traditional society. In these environments, digital environments, the decisions are even harder because we do not know how to, on the one side, design the systems that we are trying to build, all the platforms, starting from layer 1s to all the decentralized platforms that are built on top of them, and having better tools that allow us to make decisions on how to push them forward. Something is going to be a very interesting intersection between the two cases.
Yeah, just to maybe build on that, right? So one of the things we're exploring in Cardano, because as I said, we have about 7 million citizens, right? Blockchains are incredibly difficult to understand. I think Jan will agree to that, right? It's you have to be a technical nerd and a governance nerd, and understand how to run a mainframe center and all those kind of things. And then there's the social component to it, right? So what does people actually want? What does decision power really mean, right? And what we're actually exploring right now and launching is a set of I wouldn't call it AI agents because it's not as mature as that, but a set of large language models which can allow you to explore that, so you can actually have a talk with a large language model around, which is trained on blockchain and on what's on code, so it's not trained on the World Wide Web with all the non-scarcity of data, right? So you can actually sort of say, I have a bias towards this, and then you can actually have a discussion and actually can start teaching you about it in your own time. And I would imagine we can get that also in society here, right? So if you're, I don't know what party you're on or not party, right? But it's really hard to take good decisions because it's very complex. Should we do this new Social Security Act? Should we do these new freeways? How do I stand and how do I get that information? And currently we get a letter by the post in Switzerland, and it's really hard. Then I read the newspaper, but the newspaper is biased to one side, generally speaking, right? You try to pick the one which aligns with your views, right? But how do you get an unbiased view into it and actually start fact-checking some of that? And that's where the complexity and the user experience of AI, trained on a bespoke data set, which you can understand and verify, becomes a key contributor to how we take decisions going forward.
If I can add to that, right, because like if you, I don't know how many people really understand like smart contracts, what they are, right? But at the end of the smart contract, it's also like all about sovereignty, about ownership, right? So people can own their own smart contracts, and on a blockchain platform, actually, you can own your software. Before it was very complex. If you wanted to own your software, you had to run your own, system at home. NAS, have it online, maintain it. It's a pain. You couldn't do it, right? And so that's why people went into the cloud, trusted their data to cloud providers, trusted their somewhat trust third parties, right? And blockchain really gives you this, right? You can take back ownership, you have sovereignty of your data, of your AI models. If you do this kind of governance things, it's actually crucial, right? That you can trust it. Not somebody can, and we have seen that with Cambridge Analytics and Facebook, how much these networks are like doctored with just to influence political decisions. And if you're going to have these use cases, sovereignty of your software, of your data is very crucial. Security of it.
Speaking of data privacy and security and the legal ramifications of this, Reto.
Yeah, thanks. From the legal side, I mean, I guess we know the things about data privacy. It's about control in the end, which can give blockchain back to you. Obviously, what we already heard from a regulatory side. I mean, in Switzerland, we have the AI Act in the EU, which will be explained later on, obviously. And in Switzerland, we are still waiting on what the Federal Council is surprisingly maybe going to publish in December. And until then, at least we apply our existing laws. And from a regulatory perspective, nevertheless, obviously we have the regulator FINMA having already now obviously clear expectations, what they want to see, and in the end, what the regulator cannot accept is having a black box of AI coming data in it, coming a result out of it, and you cannot explain it. So we have different phases there. FINMA obviously, or the regulators in general, they look in the first place obviously on the input data, and there one of the things is the quality of the data, which data is it, and obviously also that the data is not manipulated. And there obviously blockchain can give a huge contribution with its data immutability on the one side, and on the other side also giving, as said, control back to the user, that also the financial institution is not able to. It's manipulation by the financial institution, and it's manipulation by third parties actually in the end. And blockchain really can help there to avoid that. And for the second phase, where AI works then with the data, it's again, at least what blockchain can help there is having always through the whole process like the reference system to the data, how the specific data is used at which point and what is made with it, and which data is used for the result. Because one simple example why this is necessary, obviously, where blockchain or AI is really used today in existing models, is transaction monitoring to recognize fraud, to see AML risks, and the other big application is the question of applying it in investment decisions, like further develop robo-advice. And there, if you take the robo-advice with investment decisions, in the end the financial institution is responsible to show to the user and to really also write it on file what have been the reasons for this specific investment recommendation we have given to you. So it's important, you must be able to argue and to show what the AI did with your data in the end. And so until today it's difficult to, at least from a regulatory perspective, to apply generative AI, which does things with data which go further than simply processing it according to several criteria. And yeah, this is open, but blockchain as a data system can really help here.
I mean, that's where the world gets so fascinating, right? So I just spent some time in the UAE, and the Abu Dhabi Global Market Regulation, which probably not that many people are familiar with, has done something truly unique, right? Because they're dabbling with exactly the problem that Reto is describing, but they're taking a different path. And they've hired a set of cryptographers and math people who's given some guidance there. And what they actually allow currently today, so we're not waiting until December, right? But what they allow today, for instance, is that if you are under the AGGM, right, and you have a banking license or a crypto license or VASP or whatever that might be, right, you can use what's called CK rollups. So basically, you can have another bank verifying that you've gone through AML and KYC without actually having access to that data, because they live in the same trust circuit and they use math. But what they don't allow is they don't allow an investment decision based on generative AI, where they can't explain the neural networks and how they came to that decision. You have an input and an output, but you cannot explain the path in between, right? And what I'm really hoping to see here with FINMA, we're all waiting, right? What I'm hoping to see is we're going to not do what they've done in the UK, where they start separating everything in different boxes, because these technologies, they live together, and they're meant to live together and enhance each other. And I'm hoping we will get something as good as we saw with the staking regulation, where they actually don't say one technology, one rule, but they actually go one level deeper and say something like CK rollups and verifications under, maybe potentially under FINMA, would be allowed for those use cases, right? And maybe going in and saying regression analysis and certain parts of what some people, I know not you're a very intelligent audience, but some people call AI everything with math, right? But then we can see something like regression analysis and other things, which is really not neural networks, would be allowed. And then we have a definition of the neural network and what kind of safety we need to build into it, because then we can take it from the blockchain side as well, and we can start scoping that into what Jan and I am doing to ensure that we can get much more use of AI under that regulatory framework.
Yeah, I think, if I may add, it's fully correct there. I mean, with FINMA in the KYC onboarding section, it has been already a problem with blockchain alone without AI, but there it's not FINMA's expectations, it's where we are still educating FINMA that we can use CK rollups, and that FINMA finally will somehow go away from its expectations that every financial institution has to do it by its own and cannot rely on other data. And their blockchain, actually the solutions are here already since a long time, unfortunately.
Yeah, so I had the fortune of talking to MI6, and MI6 was very sort of, look here, Cardano, blockchain is terrorist financing, and we can prove it, right? It's like, wow, great, well done. We were sitting there, and it was sort of a private, vendor without any journalists and so on, so I cannot sort of quote anybody, but let's say there was global leaders from banks there, right? And then I said, yeah, let's look at the numbers, right? Because that's where transparency sometimes gets a little bit the hard no, right? So it is true that the way true blockchain is created is that we can track everything, right? And we have the ability to use AI tools, and we're very good at that in capital markets now, to track transactions and front running and whitewashing and all those kind of things we can track on a blockchain much better than we can do in a core banking system today, huh? So when we went out of the meeting, the guy said, well, I have a great new epiphany moment. I now know that the blockchain is not the issue. It's the traditional banking system was the issue, because there I can't track it, right? So it was one of those small wins we sometimes get in blockchain, right? Where somebody said, yeah, I found the problem, but they understood that they only found the problem because blockchain is very good at showing that due to the transparency.
Can I say only one thing? That is in general a problem that applies so not only to blockchain forensics, there's a part that is a fantastic thing about blockchains, but also in general the use of AI models eventually built on top of blockchains, and even the apps. And the issue is that we have transparency, but actually nobody is understanding the transparency and nobody is actively using it. One thing that is a very interesting anecdote of one of our own research pieces is that if you look, for example, at the amount of rug pulls that happened in something as common as Uniswap, you have hundreds of thousands of events. What is funny is that the number of tokens that have been rug pulled is much lower than the number of events, which only means that in many cases there were rug pull events exactly on the same token. Even if you had the data inside of the blockchain, people allowed themselves to be scammed by exactly the same token in the same smart contract. And even in an environment in which you have privacy and you can create as many identities as you want, people with exactly the same Ethereum address have been creating multiple tokens that have been rug pulling others. And once again, people allow themselves to be scammed exactly by the same pseudo-identity of the people. We have to fast forward and extrapolate also what can happen, we're talking about dangers before, what can happen as well in an AI environment, in which even if we may claim a lot of things related to data traceability, open source of the code and the way in which these tools work, we actually need to actively leverage on that. The fact that they are there do not immediately allow us to resort on this fantastic possibility that blockchains have.
If I may go back with to regulations, right? I mean, there's two comments here. The first one, if you look now at the development of AI, in which areas who is leading, it's mostly China and US. Right? Europe essentially got killed in AI by legislation, right? And as we are here in Switzerland, actually, I think that's we did the same thing for blockchain. I think here, you know, any of you is in this area, I guess, please help to do it right, because like the way we're now doing in Europe for AI is not looking good for innovation. So we need to figure that out and like, have the right legislation to actually for all I care between blockchain and AI, but for Switzerland in general, you know, we need to hurry up here because otherwise facts will be done, and that race is lost in some sense. On that, you know, like you guys mentioned CK rollups and so on, because when I hear CK rollups, also two things come to my mind. Right? Like in crypto, nobody understands CK, what actually it is, right? It's like horrible there, and on the other hand, it's also a very specific solution, right? I think there is also like way better solutions. And if you want to do legislation or confused about CK in general, come and talk to me. I'm happy to enlighten you.
So I want to take a quick pause here and turn to the audience. Do you guys have any questions? We've talking about a lot of different ways in which blockchain and AI have like new possibilities, and it's super exciting. Anyone with a question? Not yet? Don't be shy. Or maybe you haven't had coffee yet. Okay. I want to come. Oh, we have one. Great.
I actually have a question for you. One second. They're coming. Yeah, I have a question for Frederik. And it refers back to your AI agents. And I may not have understood, but you said that at the same time as you can control your data, it's also a way to not have a bias. And for me, I thought that, you know, you by your own data, you have inherently a bias. Or didn't I understand the real question?
Oh, that's a long discussion. So, it's a really good question, right? So the question is, how do you discover your own bias, right? I mean, what we're seeing with today is, or what I'm saying is that today, if you go into your phone and you look into this passkeys, because I mean, you should all do it, because I did it myself and I was shocked, you know, because this is all vendors who has more knowledge about me in a certain area, which I've forgotten or never wrote down or I'm not managing or maintaining, but I'm verifying it and they're living off that all the time, right? And they're using that against me. They're basically harvesting me as a product, right? Which is okay. I gave them permission, right? But what I think is going to happen in the future is that due to data privacy regulation, we're going to see much harder regulation in terms of their ability to do that. And we're going to see an opportunity with AI agents that they can switch it up. And if you are in control of your own data, you can have a large language model or some kind of a model which you basically protect, because this actually knows more about you than anybody else, right? Think about digital signatures and your past, medical records. You know, I want to go to New York with my family. You know, you go to a travel agency and all the things they noted down about you and all your past travel history, including all the feedbacks you've done on Yelp, including your credit card bills, all of that creates a certain profile. And instead of, you know, trying to kind of do that yourself, you basically say, I want to go to New York with my 2 kids and my wife is 5 days. Can you book all restaurants and stuff like that? You'll be able to do that using the data. And that means that you have a digital twin who can do that. But if you go through the vendor network, the regulator will say stop, because they cannot stop using it against you. And they keep being breached. So I don't know how much you're into reinsurance, but there's a lot of reinsurance problems at the moment where they're basically saying, I'm not going to insure the bank anymore. So I'm not insuring the bank because you lost so many digital identities, and you keep coming and saying, oh, I lost control of my e-banking account, somebody took it. I lost control of my credit card, somebody took it. And now the insurance companies are saying, well, if we have so many incidents, either we're not insuring you or the premium goes up, because you cannot control the identity of your clients, right? It's very clear. You're doing the claims. You're proving yourself right, you know? And so I think the model is going to be switched over, and we're going to basically see that, I mean, there might be other things you can do it with, but blockchain is the natural fit to have the controls in place, to have the security in place, and that's just going to boost blockchain usage in a way we've never imagined before. I think the ChatGPT moment, basically, for blockchain. And it's because two technologies come together. And very rarely one technology alone is marvelous. It's several technologies who's coming together with the right user experience who's changing the world. And that's what we're going to see here. And whether it will be CK Rollups, I agree with you, right? There's some other measures to do that. But that's some regulators around the world are able to take these discussions now and are able to enforce that. And I think that's a very good place. So if we start with CK and PLS signatures, I'm fine, you know? We can all go deeper as well, and we will, you know, probably touch on quantum computing later as well, huh?
We have another question in the third row. Give the mic again.
Yeah. Thanks for that super interesting discussion. Being a privacy officer myself, I have the questions for the entire round. I observe GDPR being the killer for business and innovation in Europe and Switzerland. What do you think is the AI Act, and maybe if we will have our own AI Act in Switzerland, will happen the same? Is that going to be a curse or even a chance in the sense of our products will be compliant? Because if we talk about OpenAI and ChatGPT in the beginning, they were not compliant at all. They were horrible from a data protection point of view. So anyone open, I just want to know, is it a curse or is it also a chance for the business? Sorry, I always ask
difficult
such
question, maybe. I guess in the end it's also a question, and maybe it's too simple, but it's also a little bit a question on which part in the world you are. I mean, you have EU, Switzerland, which believe in very strong data protection, and then you have other jurisdictions, including the US, where data protection is at least not something coming from the state, maybe from the users, and there you have obviously very much AI development going on, and we see it already today. You have several times new features of Apple or Google which can not be enabled for Europe, and I guess it's no question Switzerland is adapting to the European model, or already doing the European model, and in the end it's a competition between these two. And about going forward with the development maybe in the other parts of the world, and then in the best way implementing it here. So I would say for Europe and Switzerland, it's technology-wise in the development, certainly some sort of curse, yes, but that's my personal view. On the other side, I'm not the biggest data protection man, but it matters to me, and I mean, it's on the other side, I'm also personally a little bit happy and content that we have these kind of restrictions here.
If I can add to that, right? I mean, I spent probably 30 years of my life around GDPR, privacy, how we can deal with that, and in some sense, I guess here, like how can technology play in, right? And what we see with GDPR is, on the one hand, there was technology that is just people didn't use, and the industry tried to dance around it. I guess in some sense Europe had the courage to do something against it. Although then you have Apple and Google and the large corporations which just say, I don't give a fuck, right? And I've witnessed that, like, how GDPR was, formed, and Google first, we'll do it. But we're just buying time, right? So they don't give a shit. And I think that's where again blockchain comes in terms of who is in control, right? I mean, blockchain is all about giving control back to users, doing stuff on blockchain. I think also at Dfinity, our mission is to get Google and Amazon and Microsoft, all these cloud services out of business, because you want to give back control to users, right? You want to have your data on chain and so on and so forth. So actually, not talking about the AI and being compliant. And once your data is controlled by yourself on your smart contract on blockchain, and then then actually you can have control of the data. And if you want to use your your AI, you can actually do that. You can use an AI model that then, like you have access to that, and then it uses your data, but under your control and so on. So I think that there's a lot of things are possible. The thing is that like not many people understand what is possible, right? And that's the problem with regulation. If you write regulation very much to the imagination of the guy who writes it, then you're already lost, right? And I think that's typically what happens in Europe, and which is different in other parts of the world where actually they don't really regulate much less, and some pros and cons here, right? But I think that's sort of the balance we have to strike. And as I said before, right, in Switzerland for blockchain, actually, we were pioneering some of that, and hopefully we can do the same here for at least the intersection of AI and blockchain, maybe for AI in general.
Thanks.
I love it. That's
Yeah.
sorry, we're almost out of time, but thank you so much for your participation, and I'm sure you can catch Jan and Reto afterwards. We're basically done. We're all out of time. Tamia has given me the signal. But before we go, maybe we just go down the line really quick, and you tell me each of one concrete example of an intersection of blockchain and AI that you've seen that you think is cool or that you're excited about. Maybe it's not yet live, maybe it's coming, maybe it's something that is something your friend's working on, but because it always makes it so much nicer to make it tangible, to see something that's actually come to life a little bit already. Fred, do you want to start?
So, I don't code very well. So, I'm really excited that right now I'm able to use AI models to basically do 60 to 70% of a script, and I just need to finalize the rest, and that allows me to automate things which would have, I would have to give to an engineer or I have to do otherwise. And it also allows me to understand it better, because I don't have to do everything from the start. And I know this is a bit of a boring use case, but it really helps me a lot. So pre-populating a script based on advanced prompting allows me to query APIs and even the blockchain. I think that's really awesome.
Fantastic.
I would say actually the tools that you can develop resorting on the public data that you have in blockchains exactly to detect, for example, anomalous behavior, anomalous patterns that are inside of data that can be used, for example, for traceability solution to any kind of decision support system is fantastic, and it is only enabled because of the transparency that blockchains have.
Fantastic. I love that.
Yeah, I guess in line with what you're saying, a little bit of a teaser, caffeine.ai is something that we're going to launch, and really helps you to use AI to write your own stuff and directly deploy it on blockchain as well, right? So you can write your own code, you can own your own code, and it's really just the first steps here. But this is gonna be huge, and I'm very excited about that self. Finally, I can go back to coding and actually just run it. I don't have to worry about all my servers at home or run software there myself. And all of you will be able to do the very same thing.
We can all write code, is that what I'm hearing? That's great.
Yeah, I will do it for you.
I don't write code, or at least maybe legal code, but what I like to do is actually, and it's pretty impressive sometimes, but horrible the other times, is doing brainstorming, especially when a new project or a new question comes up, and maybe it's a little bit nerdy. I maybe don't have to talk so much to my associates in that social contact, but it's interesting. You can also say please and whatever to ChatGPT. So, but the results are sometimes really impressive already now.
Awesome. Thank you guys so much for sharing. Frederik, Claudio, Jan, and Reto, thank you for being here today. Big round of applause for this fantastic panel.